There was a time when people were asking if EVs, why EVs? But I think now we have reached a position where it is more about how EVs and when EVs.
And finally, when will EVs be genuinely green?
The global push on EVs will start now, when companies really will start making EVs for the global markets. But I think we have begun well, but we are nowhere close to being half done.
Welcome to this episode of Sustainability Karma. I'm your host, Rajiv Tikoo. Today we focus on how the electric vehicle or EV industry is making its contribution to achieve a net zero world. We have with us a very prominent leader in the EV industry in India, Sulajja Firodia Motwani. She is Vice Chairperson of Kinetic Engineering and Founder and CEO of Kinetic Green Energy and Power Solutions. Welcome, Sulajja Firodia Motwani, to this edition of Sustainability Karma. We are pleased to have you on board in this edition of Sustainability Karma on All India Radio. Thank you for joining us.
I'm very happy to be here with you.
How has Kinetic become Kinetic Green?
The world is going green and the future is green. We're all very aware that, at a very broad macro level, energy transition is important. There are SDG goals all the nations are trying to meet. And also the younger generation is very keen on making green choices. And Kinetic has always been a pioneer. It has always been an innovative company. And we spotted this trend of e-mobility or the green mobility very early on and decided to focus our attention in technology development and product creation to really be able to bring this new green mobility to the world and of course, to India. So that's how Kinetic has now focused on the green technologies.
What about your products? What kind of new products have you launched recently and how are they different from the ones in the market?
So, we have been one of the pioneering companies in the EV sector. We've been an electric vehicle manufacturer since 2015 when it was not very fashionable, if I can use the word, to be an EV maker. Mm-hmm. There were more, naysayers than supporters of EV. But we were very committed and we were very strongly believing in this transition. We began our journey with electric three-wheelers. So we made a range of L3 and what they call L5. Mm-hmm. So the e-rickshaw and the e-autos. Because we believe that for that segment, it made a lot of sense to go electric. Mm-hmm. Because every day you save about 400-500 rupees on fuel. And that's the money that the rickshaw driver can take home to his family. And therefore, they were the early adopters of this technology. After a very successful entry into e-mobility through electric three-wheelers, we started our journey in the electric two-wheeler space, a space very close to our heart, to Kinetic's heart, in 2021. Mm-hmm. And we have now developed a complete range of electric two-wheelers, of course, electric scooters, but a very fantastic new offering, the e-Luna, a very unique offering. Mm-hmm. So I would say that we are different from our competition because of 2-3 reasons. Mm-hmm. One is because we are a full range company from two-wheelers and three-wheelers. We are working on creation of homegrown R&D. Make in India is at the heart of everything that we do. All our products have zero import content except for the cell inside the battery, mm-hmm. which also soon India will start making. Everything is locally engineered and developed mm-hmm. by us. Mm-hmm. And most importantly, we are looking at making products which are very well designed, which are of very good quality, very reliable, but brought within the means of the masses. Mm-hmm. So green mobility for the masses is our mantra. Mm-hmm. So as opposed to focusing on the top end of the market, making vehicles costing lakhs of rupees, we have tried to bring vehicles which can actually reach a large section of the society. And that's what Kinetic has always been good at. The first Luna, which was sold in 50 lakh plus vehicles we have sold, was made at 1,200 rupees. Mm-hmm. Kinetic Honda was a true pioneer. It was revolution. Again, because it was new technology, but brought within the reach of the society. Mm-hmm. And I think with EV, that's our focus. Make good products, innovative products, advanced technology, but through indigenous technology, make it reachable to a large section of the society. So that's what keeps me awake at night. Mm-hmm. That's my passion. Right. Green mobility for millions.
Mm-hmm. You have been a pioneer. Now, how are you playing a leadership role in the green mobility space?
So I think the first area of leadership, of course, is the mindset. We are big believers that the world is going to be green. We are truly committing ourselves and passionately working on development of technology. Mm-hmm. So thought leadership, and with conviction, bringing it to the society, to the policymakers, to the customers, educating them. Mm-hmm. The second is technology leadership. I strongly believe that trading is not the way to build a long-term business. Mm-hmm. Many people started in electric vehicles by bringing kits from countries like China and selling them in an opportunistic way, making small showrooms. Mm-hmm. But that's not going to sustain, The most important thing is to develop technology which can allow you to create good products which are long lasting
Mm.
and which are innovative and which meet the needs of the society. So, technology leadership. And the third really is the area now we are working on, which is to really reach
Mm.
leadership in reach. So taking e-mobility to the not just the A cities, but to the B, C towns, the rural areas of the country.
Mhm.
And the kind of products we have made, especially the e-Luna, for example, which is a wonderful new product from Kinetic Green, is actually the only EV in the country which is
Mhm.
designed to be suitable for the cities, but also for the small towns and the rural areas. It has big wheels, big ground clearance. It is very sturdy.
Mm.
It's a multi-utility vehicle. You can carry people, of course, but you can carry material. It's a personal come livelihood vehicle. So it is a vehicle, for example, designed to be suitable in all terrains of India. It has fully waterproof, aggregates.
Mm.
So now the focus we are having is on reaching, the country at large, and then eventually the global markets. So conviction, thought leadership, technology, R&D leadership, and now distribution and reach leadership are the three areas that we are focusing on.
We have challenges in accelerating adoption of EVs. I'm not talking about two-wheelers, I'm talking about EVs in general. How do we accelerate adoption of EVs in the country?
So it's again a very good question. There was a time when people were asking if EVs, why EVs?
Mhm.
But I think now we have reached a position where it is more about how EVs and when EVs.
Mm. Mm.
So I think there is a great acceptance already in the minds of customers that electric vehicles or green technology, let's say in general, is the right future because it saves you, the fuel cost.
Mhm.
It is not full for the environment. India has one of the most polluted cities in the world.
Mm.
So I think it's now, as you said, how to accelerate the EV adoption. And I would say that India has a very great future in this space for two reasons. One is because we are focusing on our own market and making our own policies. Unlike the West, where everybody is driving cars,
Mhm.
85% people in India are still using two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and buses.
Mhm.
So we are a country where 85% of the market is in two, three-wheeler, and buses. And our government has rightly focused that
Mm.
in the first phase of electrification, let's make these vehicles
Mm.
go electric. And
Mm.
they can easily go electric for two, three reasons. Because if you think about all these three modes of transport, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and buses, they are intra-city.
Mhm.
You don't take a
Right.
scooter from Pune to Bombay, or Pune
Right.
to Goa.
Mm.
Similarly, rickshaws, they move within the city periphery. Similarly, buses, a large part of the buses are intra-city. So you can actually make them to transition to electric without having the highway charging infrastructure,
Mhm.
which is something that takes time.
Mhm.
And also that's where the scale is. So once you have a lot of people using EVs, two-wheelers, three-wheelers,
Mm.
buses,
Mm.
it will create the ecosystem in financing, in components, customer awareness,
Mm.
adoption. And
Mm.
then from that, on the second phase, you can move to electric cars.
Mm.
So I would think that in India, it's going to be a phased approach where in the first 5 years, the next 5 years, we're going to see a massive transition
Mm.
to electric in the two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and buses,
Mm.
as a result of which a large reduction in environment pollution we can see
Mhm.
and fuel security.
Mm.
And in this period, as the ecosystem gets evolved, we will see charging infrastructure coming up in
Mm.
cities and in highways, which is a requirement for the four-wheelers.
Mhm.
You need, deep charging infrastructure for cars or for trucks,
Mm.
which are moving from one city to another city.
Mm.
Or in that area, it may not just be EV. You may see a combination of electric,
Mhm.
hybrid, hydrogen,
Mhm.
for these large format vehicles. So the technology will evolve for these formats.
Mhm.
But for the intra-city vehicles, two-wheelers and three-wheelers,
Mm.
I think we can see a massive transition to EVs coming up. Already there is a year-on-year growth.
Mhm.
Already we see hundreds of people lining up in our showrooms, which was
Mhm.
not the case earlier.
Right.
People are genuinely interested in electric now. So that's the biggest, I would say,
Mhm.
heartening, thing that I have seen in the recent times.
So, what would be the policy changes needed to catalyze this adoption?
So I think the government of India has shown a lot of foresight and vision and conviction in green. Our Honorable Prime Minister, even in the G20, has focused on energy transition, the net zero goals, the SDG, targets that the nation has adopted. There's certainly a focus on green, not only in transportation, but in all areas.
Mm.
And transport is most important because 25 to 30% of all the emission in the country is vehicular.
Right.
So if 33% emission is vehicular, you have to eliminate that. And also, transport is a big user of petrol, again leading to fuel security issues.
Mhm.
So the government has recognized this, and they have been giving very progressive policy support. We have 5% GST on EVs vis-a-vis 28% for ICE vehicles. For example, government has been promoting demand creation as well through their schemes like Fame 1 and Fame 2.
Right.
And now a new scheme has come called EMP.
Mhm.
So I think that the government should continue their support
Mhm.
till we reach critical mass. This is very important.
Mhm.
Consistency in policy is what is really required.
Mhm.
If we do an up and down or a yo-yo, yes and no and off and on, that will be very detrimental.
Mhm.
Because if people see that the support is not consistent, then people will not invest.
Mhm.
Customers will not buy. Charging infrastructure will not be developed rapidly, and then people will go back to using the petrol vehicles.
Mhm.
So while EVs have made a good beginning, we're still only at 6-7% EV penetration,
Right.
which is not critical mass. It will take some time to reach that mass, which is 20-25% EV penetration.
Right.
So I think my only request to the government has been, I chair FICCI's Electric Vehicle Committee. I also chair IFG's Electric Vehicle Committee. And through all these forums, we have been speaking to the policymakers that please continue policy support with consistency for another 3 years
Mhm.
till we reach a 25-30% EV penetration, at which point, it will become kind of more self-sustaining. Cost of batteries will come down, cells will be available locally. People will also understand the benefits of EVs much more. So we request some support, continued support for demand creation through continuation of EMP or FAME kind of schemes,
Mhm.
and a focus on charging infrastructure creation.
Mhm.
I think are the two important areas. A lot of areas have already been addressed.
Right.
I think we've had a good policy support. We just need to have consistency.
Exports are on your agenda now, I understand. And what is your understanding of what's happening globally in the EV sector? Particularly, I think we're also lagging progress on SDGs, and SDG 11.2, which is on sustainable transport, is also something which needs to be addressed. So what's your sense of the global scenario?
So most of the nations globally, developed nations like Europe, China,
Mhm.
China also is one of the leaders in EV actually. Scandinavia, and to some extent USA have been big supporters of green or e-mobility, and they've all announced their goals for transition to e-mobility. Many of them have announced goal to reach 50%, 60%, by 2030. Some nations have in fact said that by 2035 we will only allow EVs. So there's certainly a transition that's happening globally.
Mhm.
And rightly so, in line with the SDG goals and the net zero goals. But I think in terms of commerce, still countries are quite inward looking. They're still focused on creating the technology, seeding it in their markets, getting the product technology right, understanding the market, etc., etc. So I think the global push on EVs will start now. When companies really will start making EVs for the global markets. And I think that over the next 10 years, we will see a lot more global focus by EV makers. If you look at our case, for example, in the first few years, we focused on creating product and technology. We've not really gone aggressively on export
Mhm.
because many countries also the e-mobility policies are still under formation.
Mhm.
If you look at markets like South Asia, Africa, Latin America, which are the big export markets for India, they don't have very clear-cut EV policies in place, in terms of import duties, SKD, CKD, CPU, local registration, local import, local, content. So I think it's still in kind of a formative phase.
Mhm.
But as one of the thought leaders, our company will certainly now focus on working on this platform as to how can we create a global market for made in India EVs. One interesting thing I will tell you here is that, of course, we talked about 2 and 3 wheelers. But another initiative that Kinetic Green is engaged in is in a business of golf carts. And here we have a very distinctive strategy where we have signed a joint venture with the most prestigious and exciting automobile brand in the country, which is Tonino Lamborghini. So the grandson of Lamborghini car maker, Ferruccio Lamborghini, they are our partners. And with them, we are creating a range of absolutely fantastic golf carts, which are used for golf, transport, tourism, airports, hotels, resorts. It's a very big market. It's a $4 billion dollar market. And this time, the golf carts will be made with very distinct design, but made in India, fully 100% made in India, and then sold globally under the Lamborghini brand, the Tonino Lamborghini brand.
Right.
So we are working on a made in India, but for the global market approach for this part of our business. We hope to launch the golf carts in 2024. So we are very close to work on that. So in summary, I think the global market is coming. It's calling. So far, we've been focused on Indian market, but I think definitely global is a great opportunity.
Great. That sounds exciting. Battery technology has been one of the major bottlenecks for decades now. What are the kind of breakthroughs do you expect in the near future?
So battery really is the heart of EV because it's a fuel of EVs, and you have to make the fuel cheaper than the alternative, which is petrol, right? So the cheaper the fuel becomes, the more affordable EVs will become. But because if you look at EV as a product, if you remove the battery, EV as a technology is already much more affordable than ICE because you don't have an engine. So the engine is replaced with a motor and controller, and therefore the vehicle is much simpler in construction, and it's lighter. It's more long lasting, requires less maintenance. Like EV almost has become like a computer or a television, where you have more electronic components, and they hardly break down, right? Because they are aggregates. Whereas an engine vehicle, you have spark plug, and you have a carburetor, and there are many more moving parts. So EV as a product without the battery is already low on maintenance and low on cost and long lasting compared to ICE. So what remains is the battery, which is the fuel. And how can you make this fuel much more affordable to customers? I think there is a positive trend. When we started Kinetic Green in 2015, lithium-ion batteries were costing close to $800 to $1,000 per kilowatt hour. Now the cost has come down to $150 per kilowatt hour. So the trend has been definitely reduction because of mass production, because of innovation, etc. And I think this trend will continue. And the moment battery cost comes down to $100 per kilowatt hour, then electric vehicle with the battery in it will actually be cheaper than ICE vehicle. And what that will do is complete transformation, because then people can easily say that, okay, I'm buying an electric scooter, it's costing me same as an ICE scooter, but I have zero petrol cost. Because in ICE, I'll have to spend 100 rupees a day on fuel, and here I have to spend zero because the fuel is already in the vehicle.
Right.
So that will be absolutely transformative. Now, to make this happen, I think we need a lot more innovation, which is underway around the world. And with more innovation, more competition, I think the prices will continue to come down. Newer and newer chemistries are being looked at. If I look at 2 and 3 wheelers, for example, there is currently also a look at sodium ion batteries. It's still in formative stages, but if sodium ion becomes a reality, commercial reality, you have no dependence on any metals. You don't need any import of lithium or cobalt, nickel, nothing. Everything is available in India. And it will become much cheaper and much more affordable. But it's only possible for either small vehicles or for energy storage. So for 2 and 3 wheelers, I think we are looking forward to A, reduced cost of batteries, which is happening through innovation, and B, something like sodium ion, which can be really next game. If I look at, however, the larger vehicles, 4-wheelers, long range trucks, etc., we still have some way to go, because on these vehicles, what happens is the requirement of range is much higher. People want to go 300, 400, 500 kilometers. The speeds are much more, unlike light mobility, where the speeds are 60, 70, 80 kilometers an hour. On highways, people are moving at much faster speeds. So you need faster speed, you need more range. So the battery becomes bigger and bigger, and more cost, is added to the vehicle. Also, cooling is a challenge. You need liquid cooling technologies for high speed vehicles. safety is a bigger concern, all of that. So I think therefore on the four-wheelers and the trucks, there is a lot more work that's happening on alternate chemistries. There is hydrogen, which people are working on. And I think we are yet to see much more innovation on that front. But in the end, I'm very confident that e-mobility, whether it's through EV, whether it's through EV with support of hybrid, EV with support of hydrogen for the larger vehicles, will really be the most green and the most affordable mode of transport. And surely the world is moving in that direction. I'll give you an example of solar. When the first solar project came in India, I think about 15 years ago, if I'm not wrong, in Gujarat, the cost was $16, 16 rupees per unit, cost of solar, electricity. Today, you can buy solar electricity for 2 to 3 rupees per unit. And thermal is still at 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, depending on the state. In Maharashtra, we are paying 13 rupees a unit for thermal energy. We can buy solar at 3 rupees. And that has happened because globally, solar technology has evolved, innovations have happened, mass production of films has happened, cost has come down. Something similar is happening in EVs. It is transformative, it is disruptive, and is going to change the world of automobiles and transport. And we're already there, we're in the middle of the revolution.
And finally, when will EVs be genuinely green? Given that we're only addressing the one end of the spectrum, the energy source is the same, minerals are being used, disposal is a waste.
Sure. I think we have made a great beginning in this transition, but making EVs green, as they call, well to wheel, the whole supply chain is going to be, again, a exciting challenge for the world to take on. The vehicles are green. The vehicles have no pollution. We have to think about how they are charged and can that be green, first of all. And secondly, how do we ensure that there is a circular economy where the recycling of the battery and the metals is done in a green fashion so that it does not add to any waste or pollution. So I'm quite bullish that the charging becoming green, is something that is going to happen very quickly. And here is another area we need policy support from the government, that how can we, seamlessly integrate the various modes of energy, whether it is solar or nuclear or, wind energy, and how can we make it possible for the country to utilize these green modes of energy for charging of EVs. Today, I think the policy framework for feeding to the grid and all of the other areas, to make it a really truly open architecture are still under very nascent stages. So production of clean energy has increased, but the transferability or the seamless connectivity, for using it anywhere for, charging of EVs is something that we still have a distance to travel. But I'm sure that as more and more energy becomes green, that energy can be used to charge EVs. So the challenge is how to make and more energy production green and how to make it available for EV charging. I think that's one area. In terms of the recycling of batteries, I think there's another opportunity that is coming to the entrepreneurs. The lithium-ion batteries actually have a life of, let's say, 5 years, as a battery on the vehicle, after which they still have 70% juice left in them, and they can be used for a stationary application, like solar towers or not solar, sorry, the telecommunication towers or, the energy storage at home, etc. And after that, there is a possibility to recycle the batteries and use the metals again, redeploy them. So I think this is going to lead to a lot of innovation and a lot more opportunities for new business models. But it is certainly coming. We're just reaching that cycle where, first cycle of EV batteries are now coming up for second life and, recycling. And there are already many startups, which are looking in these areas. So EV is actually doing one more thing. EV is a revolution. Not only it is making transport green, it is also creating an opportunity for new entrepreneurs, new startups to play a meaningful role in the transport sector. If I look at what was happening in the last 50 years, the automobile sector was very well established. You had big companies, global companies, many of them, who had become global giants through mergers, acquisitions, mass producing vehicles. The supply chain was well established, technology was well established. So there was very little room for anyone to come and be part of this sector. EV is changing all that. So it's no longer a game of scale, it's a game of innovation. It's no longer, the manufacturing investments that are determinant of, how a good EV can be made, because EV manufacturing is simpler. It's about how can you create an EV which is genuinely giving better range, better performance, lightweighting. There is a whole ecosystem of charging. So it's not petrol station, it is charging infrastructure, battery swapping infrastructure. So a completely new opportunity set is now being explored. And then the second thing EV is doing is women. Traditionally, automobile sector has been very male dominated. You have very few women compared to the global averages. The percentage of women in automobile companies is minuscule. It is single digits.
Right.
And even though women who are there have been in areas like marketing, HR, finance, these support functions, but not really the core R&D and assembly line of automobiles. EV is changing that too, because EV is more about engineering, electronics and software, and less about mechanical engineering. There are hundreds and thousands of women entering the automobile sector through EV, whether it's in manufacturing of the electronic components like controllers, converters, motors, batteries, or actually also on the assembly line of EVs. In our own group, I will tell you that we have two companies which make motors and controllers for EVs. 100% of the women assembly line is with women. We have 100% women on the assembly line in these two companies. And in our EV manufacturing line also, we have more than 25% women. And we're aiming to 50% women. So I think all I wanted to say is that, EV is going to bring a lot of innovation, is going to bring new entrepreneurship, is going to bring more women in EVs, is going to make our reduce the pollution in our cities. And genuinely, India has an opportunity to be a leader in this space as a consumer of EVs, as a manufacturer of EVs, as an exporter of EV and EV technology. And I think we have to embrace this opportunity, wholeheartedly. And we hope to get good support from the government and also good support from customers. In India, jo dikhta hai, wo bikta hai. So as more people start buying EVs, they will tell their friends and family how good it is, and then more people will buy. Right. So I think together we can make this revolution a big success. Right. And make the future green.
Election manifestos so far have not featured climate change or action in a big way. But without getting into the politics of it, whichever government comes in, what would be the most important climate actions needed? A couple of them which you think they would need to address, whichever government comes in.
So surely, I'm not a political expert, but I think election manifestos are more about reaching the masses. It's more about inclusive growth and addressing, always about focus on those areas. I haven't seen a manifesto where environment has always taken the center stage, but that doesn't mean that it is going to be ignored. I think that green transition is a global macro theme, and if India wants to be a global leader, a global thought leader, global economic leader, top 3 economy, certainly it has to keep its focus on green. And I think it will. I don't see a reversal, that is happening in this transition, because we want to be a global leader. We want to be one of the forces to be reckoned with. So I think in the next 5 years, I would imagine that there could be 2 key challenges on the environment. One, of course, is the transport, e-mobility, continuing on this journey and ensuring that we reach at least 30 to 40% of our transport sector is made green and electric. That critical mass is critical, and from there India can look at becoming a supplier of EV technology to the world. We have scale, we have adoption, new companies will also come here because they see the big market here, right? So that's number 1. Number 2, what we spoke earlier, how can we produce more and more green energy and then bring all of these two together, and also create an awareness, and create the right policy framework for people to adopt green, in terms of companies adopting net zero targets, individuals looking at green choices, creating that whole awareness. Right. But I think we have begun well, but we are nowhere close to being half done. And I think energy transition and transport, e-mobility transition are the two critical areas I feel. When you talked about environment, there are of course many other things to do which we are doing as a nation. But in the area of environment, I think these are going to be the two big reduction of pollution and to keep India's role, position as one of the leading companies in the world.
Thanks a lot. It has been wonderful talking to you and getting a sense of what's happening and what's likely to happen.
Thank you so much. It's been great fun, and let's make the future green.
Thanks a lot. You just heard Sulajja Firodia Motwani, Vice Chairperson of Kinetic Engineering and Founder and CEO of Kinetic Green Energy and Power Solutions.
We hope you like this program. This program is also live streamed on All India Radio and aired on community radio stations. We look forward to your feedback on our WhatsApp number 9818120554. For participation in this program, write to us at sustainability.karma@gmail.com. You may also connect with us on social media. This podcast is also available on podcast hosting sites. Looking forward to meet you again at the same time next week with a new episode and a new guest. Till then, goodbye from all of us. Sustainability Karma, a podcast series with senior journalist and editor Rajiv Tikoo on sustainable development, sustainability and ESG.